Charleston city leaders want to make some changes to the horse carriage laws. Today, I talk one-on-one with Tommy Doyle Jr. of Palmetto Carriage Works for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook.
Tommy Doyle Jr., welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hey, thanks for having me, Quintin. Glad to be here.
You're very welcome. Obviously, you're the president and general manager of Palmetto Carriage Works downtown Charleston. And I want to take you to the article from Channel 5. It reads this: Charleston Carriage Horse Advocates are calling for changes in the carriage horse industry. This week, city leaders are set to make some decisions on their proposals. Let me ask you this, Tommy. Why now in your mind?
Well, Quintin, that is the $1 million question. Why now? The anti-carriage group has been on us for years and years and years. And the only thing I can speculate as far as the timing is, we're coming out of, my family's been in the carriage business for 40 years. And of the 40 years we've been in the carriage business, the last 13 or 14 months have been the toughest times that we've had to endure. And I'm including Hugo in that, the recession in 2008. The gas surge in the late 70s, and I can only suspect that those advocates, they smelled the chum in the water, and were trying to get us while we're down. And that's the only thing that I can speculate, with this. But it's the same message over and over again. Baseless attacks, baseless accusations that this group continues to throw at us.
What's the truth about the horse industry in your mind?
The truth, I don't know of any industry that's more transparent than the Charleston carriage industry. The city of Charleston is the only city in the country that has an equine manager. Her job is to do nothing but to monitor what goes on in our carriage barns. The animals are tracked from the time I take ownership to the time that they leave my ownership. They see a vet a minimum of 3 times a year, one time by a vet that's not even mine. It's a city hired vet that comes in to check over the animals. That's a minimum of 3 times a year. I don't know about you, but I go to the doctor 1 time a year. They see it 3 times a year.
Wow, that's amazing. And let me continue with the article, because it says this: documents have been presented by both the advocates and the carriage horse industry, as well as a new draft ordinance written by the city of Charleston's legal team. What documents now, Tommy, have you been actually presented with?
So kind of the way this played out is the anti-carriage group presented the city with, I want to say it was about 12 pages of regulations that they wanted. The city looked at them, combed over them for about a year. Some of the stuff was as ridiculous as having the animals detached from the carriage. So if there was a problem, I don't really know what it was, but you could pull a pin and the animals could just run away through the street. That was one of their ideas. Another idea that was scary to me was some of the proposals would eliminate school groups, giving kids the opportunity to see and learn about the history. But the way it went with the advocates group to the city. The city reached out to the industry. The industry's position is that these are unnecessary regulations, and that we don't really have any. What problem are we trying to solve? One of the subcommittee members last night, he had a great comment, which was that this is a solution looking for a problem, and that's really that's the carriage community's view of this. And I'm really, it's demoralizing as a business guy as we're trying to climb out of the COVID hole. That government's going to hand us, here's more regulation to make it more difficult to do business in a time that's a tough time to be doing business anyway. But I don't know if I really answered your question, but it started with the anti-carriage group, filtered to the city. We had a little bit of input, and that's sort of where it is now. The subcommittee met last night, and they gave a thumbs down to the first 3 sections that was presented. And basically they didn't support it at all, and that's what we'll report back to the Tourism Commission. We've got a meeting tonight and tomorrow night.
Now, let me ask you this too, Tommy. Have you been actually given a copy of the new draft ordinance?
Which one? Yeah. So there's 30. So what we've been presented with, or what I have in my possession, I want to say it's 32 pages of regulations. Some are theirs, some of the cities, some of mine, and it's so I've been issued copies of what everybody wants.
And obviously, Charleston Livability Tourism Director Dan Reachel says the goal of obviously their meeting yesterday and today and obviously tomorrow, Thursday, is to find the middle ground. What exactly is that?
Now, that is a great question. We're asked to come to the middle ground with a group that wants me out of business. They don't want me to make a living, make a living doing carriage business, thing I've done my whole life and my family has done for 40 years. That, I would add, how do you come to, where does the conversation start with a group that doesn't want you in business? I got to make a living. I got to eat. So where does that conversation start? And to me, there isn't a conversation to be had. There isn't a middle ground to be had. These people that are part of this group, this anti-carriage group, they're not going to quit until I give up or until they win. That's how this is going to work.
Has the city of Charleston heard from anyone who's actually driven horses before they came up with these recommendations?
They reached out somewhat to the industry, and the Carriage Operators of North America has a set of guidelines, and that's referred to a few times throughout the ordinance. And that's a good group. But a lot of the things that the cities asked for, the advocates in particular had asked for, were things. A lot of things we're doing already, right, or were completely impractical. So, yeah, that's.
And what are those recommendations that were impractical to your company and the industry?
Well, one of them was having two people on every carriage. A driver and a tour guide. And that's just really, for number one, I don't have enough employees right now anyway. And to double my payroll in a time when we're still recovering, that to me was just unreasonable. And again, this is a solution looking for a problem. And it's just, that's just one that comes to mind. And then another one too, limiting the number of children on a carriage. One of the rules that was thrown out there would eliminate my wife and my two kids to go on a carriage tour. Unless I win.
And Tommy, let me ask you this too. I want to ask you this, but I lost my train of thought there. But obviously, okay, here it is. You talked about obviously if they were to have two drivers there, it would double your payroll. What's your payroll now for, say, for one driver?
You mean how much does one driver make now?
Well, how much does it actually cost you to have? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so our drivers make pretty close to $20 an hour around there. So you're talking about essentially doubling that. Margins in our industry are not huge. People, they see carriages go by with full carriages, they're $40 a person, but people don't realize on the back end and the expense of keeping the animals, keeping the employees. And I've got 54 employees that work here. We've got 40 animals that are employed with us as well. And, it's been very good to my family throughout the years, but, the margins aren't near what one would think.
What were the margins 20 years ago, and what are the margins right now?
Without getting into specifics there, our margins now are less than they were 20 years ago. Just the cost of doing business in the city has gone up exponentially, over the last 10 or 15 years. A carriage tour, when my family started doing this, Quintin, in the mid-'70s, I can remember when it was $5 for adults and $3 for kids. And now it's $40 for adults and $30 for kids. So just everything's gotten expensive.
And I know that those with the CCHA, who are obviously anti-carriage, there are three specific major changes they want to see. First, they want to see, would like to see the city require background checks on drivers. Second, they would like to see the city require routine drug and alcohol screenings. And finally, the CCHA says they would like to see a requirement of, obviously, as you just mentioned, 2 drivers per carriage. Let me ask you this. What is your routine as far as checking for, drug and alcohol with employees?
Yeah, so, if we suspect an employee is under the influence of alcohol or drugs or alcohol, we've got a policy where they're made available immediately for testing. This is done, they signed a waiver at the beginning of their employment to say, hey, this is our policy. And, if we have an accident, and after the accident, if there is suspicion, we'll do that. To me, it's a privacy thing. And this is where my personal belief gets into things. And I just don't believe in violating somebody's privacy like that unless there's a reason. Again, I'll throw back at you, Quintin. This is a solution looking for a problem. To my knowledge, there's never been a carriage incident that's involved drugs or alcohol.
And I know, too, there are several more things that they are set to discuss, including LED lights on carriages, emergency procedures during weather events like hurricanes and more. None of these drafts are actually final, and all of them will be discussed at the subcommittee meetings that you just mentioned. Does this particular group, the CCHA, know the exact emergency procedures?
No, I would be interested to know how many people in the anti-carriage group really know what is in that those new regulations. Again, that group's goal is to have no carriages on the street in Charleston. That is their goal. You can go to their Facebook page, you can go to their website. That is what their goal is. And what they are looking at this is tools to make things more difficult for carriage operators in the city to do business.
What more of those tools are you really scared about?
Well, I'm just scared of all of it. The unknown right now is things are bouncing back good. And, business has been good, but, I've got a severe labor shortage right now. I don't know when that's going to end. People are spending money like crazy now, and that's great, but I don't know when that's going to end. And, this layer after layer after layer of regulation on a business, it just makes it very hard to do business. We're a small business. People pay their mortgages doing this. People pay their rent. They pay their child support. They pay everything. And, this is just it's an unnecessary taxing, on our business. The fact that my business is still recovering from COVID and I'm having to wade through 32 pages of more regulation is just ridiculous to me.
Now, let me ask you this. This might be a tough question here, or, a silly question, Tommy, but are there any of those regulations that you've looked at to say, aha, I might can try this?
There's a lot of those we do. You mentioned the LED lights.
Right.
Already got them. The training program.
Right.
I got them.
Right.
And, there's a lot of things, that we do, but I just have a tough problem. Again, I go back to coming to the table to talk about and discuss ideas with a group with their one goal is to put me out of business. Where does that conversation start?
And do you foresee, this is a wild question, do you foresee the city changing the auto and motorcycle traffic patterns and dedicate certain areas just for horses and, obviously residential only?
Oh, that'd be great. I don't see that happening, though. The city's running in such tight quarters now. And the carriages, we've got ample room to pull over, and what we're doing is working, and that goes back, Quinn, what we're doing is working. It's working pretty good. We're providing a job for Charleston citizens. We're providing jobs for my animals, and what we're doing is working. And again, man, we are trying to find a problem that doesn't exist.
Will you ever come to the table with them with a conversation, Tommy?
No. You know what, Quinn? I should never say never. Let's come back to given. But again, I don't know what that conversation would be like, and I don't really have any interest in doing that. I look at these meetings that we're going to. That's kind of us coming to the table, for lack of better words. I think somebody used that analogy last night at the subcommittee meeting, that this subcommittee meeting and this subcommittee is the table.
And where is your support in the community? Where is it?
Oh, we have tremendous support in the community. I, in my heart of hearts, believe this is a vocal minority. My place is open to the public. I've done weddings for your daughters. I've done birthday parties for your sons. We've been a fixture and a part of the city for 40 years. And anybody that takes the time to come down and check us out, or if they know me, or they know my family, or if they know the Comptons over at Old South, or they know the Christophs over at Charleston Carriage, or the Canoths over at Polo Carriage. We've all been in the carriage business a really long time, and we've got a really good track record. Don't believe me, but if you look at the track record of the industry, if you take a few minutes and you walk through every one of our barns, I think you'd be really surprised and shocked. And we have a lot of support in the community. I'm very comfortable with the support in the community.
Tommy Doyle Jr., thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.